What is a dividend? Why do companies pay dividends? How much money did my investment portfolio provide me in dividends last year? Let's get into it. What's happening, folks? My name is Robbie and today we are talking dividends. Specifically, how much I made in dividends in 2022. But before we begin, I don't make this content for free, as we have discussed. I require payment in the form of subscribers. So if you're new, hit the subscribe button and we can crack on. So what is a dividend? A dividend is the way that a company pays profits to a shareholder. So let's use an example to explain. A very simplified explanation. Let's call our company Robbie Corbett Limited. The company sells tyres. They have 100 shares and 4 shareholders. Shareholder A is the majority shareholder. They own 51%. Shareholder B owns 19%. And shareholder C and D both own 15% each. In 2022, Robbie Corbett Limited had a turnover of £1 million. So that's all the money the company made in total through selling tyres, fitting tyres, selling air fresheners at the desk, any products and services that they have sold, that all comes into their turnover. So that's £1 million, but they had staffing costs of £100,000. They had to pay their staff £100,000 in salary, pension contributions and everything else. They also had cost of goods, so they had to actually pay for the tyres from their supplier and any other products that they sell. Let's call that £250,000. There were various other costs to running the business like rent, insurance, marketing on social media, web hosting, everything else that comes into running the business. Let's call that another £250,000. So to establish the profit, bear in mind this is a very simplified example, but to establish the profit, we take that £1 million turnover, we subtract the £100,000 staffing costs, the £250,000 in costs of goods, and the £250,000 of all the other expenses. This leaves us with a profit of £400,000. Bear in mind there's tax and everything to take into account here as well, but I'm not going to bore everyone with that. What's left to take is £400,000 in this example. The company wants to reinvest some money, they want to buy some new equipment, so they decide to retain some of this profit. They decide to keep £200,000 in the business for reinvestment next year. So there's still £200,000 unaccounted for here. This £200,000 is paid out to the shareholders in the form of dividends. It's their share of the profits for the year. And because we already know there are 100 shares, we can divide that £200,000 by 100, giving us a dividend of £2,000 per share. So we know what each shareholder owns in terms of how many shares each person owns. So all we need to do is multiply that £2,000 per share by the number of shares they have. So shareholder A with 51 shares receives £102,000. Shareholder B with 19 shares receives £38,000. Shareholder C and shareholder D both get £30,000 each. And this is why equity in a business is so important for long-term wealth building. If you manage to scrape some money together and you wanted to invest in this company, for example, let's say you pulled it together and you managed to buy 1% of the business. At the end of the year, you would have been paid £2,000 for that one share. An extra £2,000 for doing nothing. And if the business was ever to sell, you'd receive 1% of the proceeds as well. So we now have a very basic understanding of how dividends work. And that's no different to how dividends work with big companies, really. Obviously, I'm not an accountant and I'm not going to give you the full technical breakdown of how dividends are paid for big publicly listed companies like American Express, Apple, BP. It's a very similar concept. It's just more complicated because there's more money and more people and more products and more loans and more everything. Fundamentally though, the real difference is there are a lot more shareholders than 4 shareholders dividing 100 shares. For example, I own Starbucks shares, but with the amount of money that I've invested, I think I've got around £1,000 sitting there just now. I own something like 0.000000002% of Starbucks, probably even less than that. But if they make £1 billion in profit, and that is distributed in dividends, I get 0.000000002% of that £1 billion. So with that being said, let's get into the stuff that you really came to this video for, not the description of how dividends work. How much did I make? So I've omitted one company from these numbers, and that's purely because it's a limited company with a few other shareholders that I know personally. So out of respect for them, I'm not going to include any dividends I made from that company because that's my business and their business, but everything else is fair game. So I'm going to start from the very bottom and we'll work our way up here. So my lowest paying dividend of 2022 was Crescent Point. I received this share on FREETRADE for referring someone to the platform. If you'd like a free share too, I've put the link in the description of this video. You can click on that. If you want to make an account and invest in the stock market, you'll get a free share for signing up through my link, and so will I. So I own £5.37 in Crescent Point. I know, FREETRADE really balled out on this one. Crescent Point paid me a total of 10 pence in 2022. You heard that correctly, 10 pence. Next up is B&M, the bargain store, a fond favourite of my fiance, and another free share from FREETRADE. I currently hold £4.77 worth of B&M, and they paid me 13 pence in 2022. So we're now up to a juicy 23 pence for the year. Next up is IRSA Inversiones, or Inversiones, I don't know. This is another free share from FREETRADE, and apparently they are a real estate firm in Argentina. Who knew? I own one share which is worth £4.39, and they also paid me 13 pence. For those of you not keeping a tally at home, we're now up to 36 pence. Meaning my dividends have provided me enough money to buy a Freddo and maybe get a little bit of change. Albemarle, a company specialising in chemicals like lithium, I've since sold my shares, but in 2022 they paid me a dividend of 24 pence. 60 pence in total. We can buy 2 Freddos now. Dunelm, the furniture store, another free share. I hold £11.42 worth of Dunelm, and I received 26 pence in dividends. That dividend could fund a full Freddo on its own, I think. I think Freddos are 25 pence, but I could be wrong. Haven't bought one in a while. We're now up to 86 pence. Halma PLC, which I owned for a brief period in 2022, they paid me 37 pence, £1.23 in total, and I could probably buy a mid-tier packet of biscuits, maybe some own brand custard creams. Santander Mexico, and you guessed it, another free share. I hold £5.35 in Santander Mexico and received 45 pence in dividends. We're now up to £1.68. Experian, the credit report company, I sold those shares, but while I held them, they paid me 59 pence in dividends. I know, you can't hide money. £2.27 in total. CSN, guess how I acquired this share? You guessed it, FREETRADE. I hold £6.68 and was paid 77 pence in dividends. £3.04 now. We are rapidly approaching the £5 mark. Scottish Mortgage Trust, the biggest holding so far at £142, and I was paid 81 pence, which puts us at £3.85 in total for the year. Enough to buy a Starbucks, one single Starbucks in a year, but free money. But now we're into the good stuff. Dividends that paid me more than £1 a year. American Express. I own around £660 worth of American Express and received £1.86 in dividends. We're now at £5.71. National Grid, which I owned for the first 2 months of the year, they paid me £2.49 in dividends, bringing the total up to £8.20. Apple, up next, I own around £785 worth of Apple shares and was paid £3.72 in dividends, meaning my Apple shares could fund me a whole iPad if I hold on for another 134 years. So that's exciting. We're also now above a tenner for the year, and that is exciting. £11.92. Shell. I own around £250 worth of Shell, and they paid me £5.41 in 2022. I don't have an exact number, but I would guess that I probably spent at least £500 in Shell over the course of the whole year. So it's good to know that I got maybe 1% cash back on that, £17.33. That means that my dividends from 2022 could have funded a large Big Mac meal from McDonald's, maybe some cheese bites and a McFlurry. Procter & Gamble, £359 worth of shares, got me £7.31 in dividends, £24.64. We've upgraded our dividend funded dinner to maybe a Nando's. BP is up next, another company who has probably received at least £500 from me over the year as well, and they paid me £8.33 in dividends, which is about 1.6% cash back on my fuel. So I know where I'll be going for my fuel from now on. That puts us up to £32.97 for the year. UK Commercial Property Trust, they paid me £9.14 in dividends for the year, putting us at £42.11. AT&T, big American company, they pay a pretty good dividend in terms of percentage. I own around £193 worth of AT&T and received dividends of £11.76, putting me up past the £50 mark to £53.87. My favourite company? Starbucks. I own just over £1,000 worth of Starbucks shares and they paid me £12.64 in 2022. which covers the cost of around 3 lattes for the year. There has been days where I've had that many lattes from Starbucks in one day, but money's money. This puts the total up to £66.51. Imperial Brands, I have a couple £100 invested with them, and they paid a dividend of £12.81, putting us up to £79.32. Persimmon is up next. They paid me £16.57 in dividends in 2022, and according to Google, the average Persimmon home costs around £260,000 at the minute, meaning it would only take me 15,691 years of dividend payments to be able to buy one in cash. And last but not least in the portfolio is Warehouse REIT, that is a real estate investment trust. They paid me a dividend of £25.13, and to receive that I own around £570 worth of shares. And this brings the total dividends in 2022 to £121.22. So for all the investing that I do, my dividends could cover the cost of maybe a Premier Inn on the outskirts of a city, and it might get breakfast in the morning as well. But to be completely honest, I invest for long-term capital appreciation. Dividends are just a bonus. I don't actually spend them. They just get reinvested back into the companies. But this brings me to my next point. I do have some other investments in the portfolio that pay me a return. It's my favourite aspect of this part of my investment portfolio. Index funds. So I opted to keep them until last. The index funds that I invest in are either accumulation units, which means the dividends are just automatically reinvested, and they're also held within an ISA, which means they're inside a tax wrapper. I don't need to pay any tax on dividends or any capital appreciation when I sell them. But here are the dividends for those funds. And if they're accumulation units, this is what the dividend would be if they weren't accumulation units. FTSE 250, that paid me dividends of £21.40, taking us to £142.62 for the year. Germany All Cap Index Fund paid dividends of £26.71, bringing us up to £169.33. A big one from the emerging markets, £74.36, and that takes us to £243.69 for the year. What could I get with £243.69? My sort of short-term reward when I hit some targets is I'm going to buy myself a Mercedes AMG C63, which you can get for £40,000 to £50,000, meaning my dividends so far for the year of 2022 could buy me just under 0.5% of a C63, which is nice, I suppose. It means I only need to fund the other 99.5% myself. But the final investment that paid me dividends in 2022 was the S&P 500, by far my biggest investment in the stocks and shares portfolio. This paid me £699.42 in 2022, which just goes to show the numbers seem low and sort of pointless at smaller amounts. For example, B&M paying me 13p or whatever it was. But regular deposits over a long enough period of time will amass a bigger pot. Dividends will be paid on that bigger pot. The whole of that £699 was reinvested back into the S&P 500, meaning that if dividends stay the same for 2023 and the share price was to stay the same for 2023, I'd be receiving dividends on a further £699. Not to mention the fact that I buy the S&P 500 monthly, and obviously it fluctuates up and down. So all in all, with index funds taken into account as well, my investment portfolio returned me a total of £943.11 in dividends for the year. For nothing. Zero work. I did nothing for that, other than the initial research or whatever and making the decision to actually invest in whatever company it is. I didn't have to get up at 7 and drive to the office, work for 40 hours. I didn't need to go sell any items. That's just my shares of the profits of these companies and funds, and every single penny is reinvested. So without taking into consideration any monthly deposits or capital appreciation or depreciation of the stocks, because remember, stocks can go down as well as up, as we've found out over the past year. If we're just looking at these dividends, my portfolio, and therefore my net worth, increased by almost £1,000 for me doing nothing. I hope you found this video informative, maybe a little bit entertaining, and hopefully it encourages some of you to start your own investment portfolio. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe. I'm shooting for 4,000 subscribers and I'm currently sitting on about 1,500. Any help is greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take it easy.